Nebraska, which is located 120 miles northwest of Lincoln, which is the state capital. Today's date is June 26, 1992, and the spot that we're standing at right now is 1 mile west and 1.25 miles north of Newman Grove. In the field to my left, down in the gully, my grandfather, Nels Kleveland, was born January 16, 1888, in a sod house somewhere in the location of that cornfield behind me. In this area, we have rolling hills, and right now there's soybeans and corn being planted right in this area. What I want to do is have three of the five of the children that were born at Bessie and Nell speak to you about the lives that they had in this area and with their family. I would like to have them introduce themselves, give their home address and their age and their birth date. And for the two that are not with us, I want them to also fill you in on themselves as well. So for that, let us go ahead and introduce them. But first, let me say that my name is LaRiene Nelson. My mother is Dolores, who was the second child of Nelson Bessie. And two of the people that are filming this are Beth Sjo and Debbie Sjo, and they are daughters of LaRiene, who was the third child of Nelson Bessie. Yes, if you could then give all the information for each one of the children, please.
My parents had 5 children, 3 boys and 2 girls, and the oldest was Irvin Henry, and he passed away 2 years ago. He had how many children? And 18 grandchildren and 9 great-grandchildren. Lived in Chester, Nebraska. March 23rd, Cleveland Nelson, and I was named after my mother's mother, Ella, and then I have, 50 years ago, June 4th, I was married to Clarence Nelson, and we had 7 children. First pair were twins, Kathleen and Karen, and then we had Deanna, and then Doug, and then Cheryl and Roy.
Hey, Marilyn.
And, Marilyn came before Cheryl.
But you go by Dolores, right?
Yes.
And why did they give you the name on your birth certificate?
They did that years ago for people, a lot of people. If they had some preference to the name, they just kind of like to, use that. And many people now like Urban before they as they use it. I'm LaRiene Sjo, November 24, 1922.
My name is Nels Bernum Kleveland. I was born July 22nd, 1925. I'm currently living in Cleveland, Ohio, 16309 Melvin. We have one younger brother by the name of Lawrence Cleveland. He had no middle name, and he was born October 22nd, 1928. He is currently living in
1927. Excuse me.
the 27? 25. He's currently living in Cherokee Village, Arkansas. He's married to Loopy, and they have, he has adopted children, or he didn't adopt them.
So we had good ideas like what?
11/1/11, Meadowbrook Drive, Warren, Michigan. And by the way, I'm wearing my mother's graduation gift from her mother. She graduated from Albion High School, Albion, Nebraska, in 1912.
What does that, what is that made out of? Can you describe
It's
it a little
gold.
bit?
It's gold and has embossing or something, like a floral
Uh-huh.
gold.
Could you tell us what it was like for Grandpa's parents, I guess, at the time that they lived here and also at the time that he was born?
Well, he was born in a sod house during the blizzard.
Was that a one-room sod house?
Oh, yes.
Uh-huh.
And dirt floor.
Mm-hmm.
For the roof, they would use sod, grass to grow, from the sod on the roof. Very warm. Oh. And he was so tiny that he could fit in a shoebox. And I remember his telling about one time a rattlesnake crawled into the sod house and was crawling towards him. He was lying on the floor as a baby.
Mm-hmm.
And his mother had to take some kind of hatchet or something and kill the rattlesnake. That's the baby. He always told us about that he was born in 88, January 18th, and he, of course, blizzard was real bad that year, and he was small, very small boy. He could fit into a man's shoebox.
How did his parents get to this area? Do you know?
They came by ship to America, and I don't think Ellis Island was there at the time, so I don't know where
Did they come
ended.
through Minnesota, do you think?
They went to Minnesota first. As a matter of fact, I think Grandpa Henry Cleveland came by himself to Minnesota and was there for a few months, and then he went to North Dakota and he homesteaded a farm in North Dakota, sent for his wife and baby girl Lava there. And they lived there for 5 years, I believe, and then they came to Nebraska and homesteaded in this area.
Could you
I
give
mean,
us
his parents.
the information on the Cleveland name and Larson and that story?
Well, when they came over here, the people from the old country, mail system wasn't so that they could always know where the mail should be. And he said that they came over here and their name remained Larson even after my dad had been confirmed. And he said then Grandpa decided, well, they could change it to Cleveland. And they used the K. Evidently, they thought of Cleveland, Ohio.
It was not that.
Wasn't it?
No.
Oh, what was it?
Cleveland has,
Oh,
the
yes,
Norwegian
it's
language has no capital CRC. So all names like Cleveland, Kathleen, Christine, they're all spelled with a K. But when these people came here, they had come from an area in Norway, and the farms there were various names, so they've taken on those names. One of the farms in Norway near Bergen is called Cleveland, and it's spelled with a K. And the reason they did that primarily was because at that time we had no social security system and no social security numbers, because as you know, all your banks and all your accounts have your social security number. And if you were to put your money into a Nels Larson account, you wouldn't know whether you got that money or who got that money. Therefore, they decided, well, there are not that many Clevelands here. And that's when they changed it.
When you went to Norway, did you see that area where it's there?
It was just in general, but Dr. Chris Allen is the one that told me all this.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And it's the area where it was, like he showed me, where Grandma Cleveland used to take your great-grandmother, took him down through in Bergen and shopping, and she used to wear these real fancy hats with all kinds of fruit and stuff around the hat. And he was so embarrassed about this that he hated to go walking with her because she'd take him downtown.
What were the communities back there that they were from again?
It's Bergen is the area, the city.
Okay.
But I don't know all the farms, which is equivalent to our counties, and one of them in that area is Cleveland.
Do you know why he immigrated to the United States?
Primarily for jobs and work, and over there wasn't that much facilities or for them to advance or do anything for a good livelihood. So, as you know, if you saw the country there, the fjords and all that, and there's very little area for farming along the area. The rest is they have up in the mountains. They take their cattle up there and milk the cattle, and then they have these little places where they store the cheese and butter and that, and then take that down. But a lot of people go up there, and these kids will stay up there all summer long, tending those herds and milking those cows.
It's a very lonely life for a person, you know, living in Norway.
How many children were in grandfather's family?
One
You know the
daughter,
name?
she's the oldest, Lava, married John Wayne, and figured there were
So
7
the
boys.
best to do is just name them.
Well, it was, let's see, Lava Williams, and then Christopher and Laura, twins, and then then younger Chris. There were 2 Chris.
One's
One
Christopher
John.
and one's Chris.
One John. And then after
Very young, you mean?
At a
Yes.
young age.
was Henry and Nell and Bert.
What was the connection with the place you lived at the John house and then on our grandmother's side as well?
Well, our mother's mother and her third husband, Bernum Sjo, our grandmother's name was Effie, Ella, and she had all kinds of names, but they always called her Effie. And they lived down here in this, but it was then a farm, a house.
This
Tiny
was
house.
just one of the places they did, but
Yeah.
they lived in the locality.
But this was the last farm on which they lived before they moved into Newman Grove. They lived in a house where actually Henry and Carrie lived there later, and Henrietta, our cousin, and her husband Clarence Johnson lived there. This is where our mother's mother lived when she died. I remember when she died
At
in
the
that house.
time that grandfather was born, do you have any recollection on anyone saying how large land his father owned here? Was it like 40 acres? Was it 160 acres?
It's
No.
usually a quarter section. Most of the lands were
They were divided in quarter section. in that
quarter
time.
section, I believe.
And
That would be.
it's just-
Did they ever have any dealings with the Indians in this area?
Well, I'm sure there were, but I think it was more or less, by the time they came here, it was more or less established farmland.
Because in the 30s, even when I was little, the Indians would come around and they'd do their powwows and so
Or they
forth.
still did?
In town here.
But if you fed them, gave them some food, they usually didn't bother.
Well, that was primarily gypsy.
Well, that was the gypsies who came to us. They were Indians.
But
I guess that's a wrap. view that you just saw is the first farm that Nelson and Bessie lived at from the years approximately from 1918 to 1926. They were married on March 24th, 1915, and they lived originally in the vicinity of Foster, Nebraska, which is south of Tilden, which is just approximately about 20 miles northwest of here. Then in 1918, they moved to this location on this farm. This farm is located 1 mile due west and 2.5 miles due north of Newman Grove, Nebraska, and it's on the northwest corner of the intersection. As we look up at the farm place right now, it is lying vacant, and there is a fence going around it. Obviously they are grazing cattle in there right now, and it is no longer being used as a farm homestead. Now let's go and talk to the two sisters who can give us some ideas on what it was like at the time growing up here, and if they could, tie us in on who was born here at that time.
Well, I was the first one born here, and that was in October 14th, 1920. And at that time, we didn't have hospital births very often. I was here. And I remember Mom always surprised us at Christmas time, and we believed in Santa so much that she had a closet upstairs that she locked so we couldn't go in there. And then when it came Christmas time, of course, Christmas morning, here was our gift. Then I would look out the east window, and you see that farm way over there? That's my future husband, Clarence Nelson, home place.
Oh, with the silo up there.
Yeah. And that house, those trees weren't there, but it was a huge house, which is still there. And to me as a child, that was always a cabin. That was the pretty nice little thing. And we had terrible winters here, and I remember huge snowdrifts up north of the house and by Barnet, and we'd climb over those huge banks and play as kids. And let's see, and Irvin and I went to school over here in District 45 over west a mile from here across the section. And
that was the old one-room schoolhouse.
Yes, with the double desk, the old-time double desk. And Dad never did believe in hauling the kids to school or taking us with the team. So little me, Irvin and I would walk across, and he sometimes got a little anxious and would run and leave me. Well, then a boy up north here, George Griles, he always came across the section 2 to school, so then he would come about the same time as us, and he would pick me or take me by the hand and help me get to school. Otherwise, if we walked this mile across here to the west, well then the Rosenbergs lived on the corner. And Glenn, who lives now down in Arizona, south of Phoenix, he sometimes would help me when it was very cold and my little hands was freezing, but he would hold my hands then and help get me to school, because Irvin always would run on.
Where was Irvin born at?
Irvin was born up in the home up towards the Gloucester area.
Yeah.
And Mother had taught in a school up there in the district, and that's how Dad was farming up there, and that's how he got acquainted with her and married her there.
If we could back up a second then, where did Grandpa live after they moved, or after he lived at this, the first farm place we saw? Which is
when he grew up as a young man, then he went to farming up there in the Gloucester area,
and
as I remember him.
And where did they meet, and did they ever give any stories?
Well, he was a bachelor there in the area where she taught. The schoolhouse was close by. And, of course, naturally, the young men and girls stayed.
Some of his students were some of her students were his nieces and nephews. Callan Austin. Callan was one of the students.
Oh, yes, and
that
Clara.
And Clara Dorsey. That was the Worry children. His
So
sisters.
she was a school teacher.
Yeah.
Weren't
She
each of you school teachers at one time?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, when she's talking the school that she attended, District 45, I taught there. My sister was in 1940.
Where was grandmother born at?
Well, we both have different, I don't know why we didn't get down to nitty gritty. I always heard her say Vancouver, British Columbia.
And on my birth certificate it says Fort North.
And
Yeah,
so,
the one that, oh, you're old.
Mine from the state of Nebraska.
Oh.
The
and
birth
so
certificate.
she moved here with her parents? Is that how it
Her
was?
mother lived up there. Her dad worked in the mine, and he disappeared and never showed up.
Which mine?
You know,
Up in Alaska, yes.
So,
And she had
did he
Elsa.
die? Or what?
maybe an avalanche. We never knew the story.
Okay.
They
That's
never
what
found
she
out.
used to say, that he was killed in an avalanche.
And it was Elsa, a sister, and then Dewey, a brother. So she had those three youngsters. Well, then she came down to Boone County, and she met this George Vineyard, and she married him, and they, I don't know how many years they were married, and then he died. Well, then she was a widow. Well, then later she married Bernard Sjo, but that was because he was a boy, went to the same school as Dad over in the Simonson district, and he and Grandma got together through Dad and Mom because she was cooking for bachelors that had a ranch at Bud Petersburg, and Bernard was working there, and so that's how they got together.
Are these the original buildings that you remember? being
Yes.
in?
I was telling LaRiene that this east room, the east one,
And
is
can
our
you speak
bedroom.
up a little bit louder, please?
The east room up here, the one that I used to look up to the Nelson farm and
Uh-huh.
see the castle, was where LaRiene and I had our room, and Irvin had the north one. And then this room on this side was kind of where Mom hid the Christmas gifts.
That barn was there as well?
The original buildings are there, the wash house and everything.
What did you use? What was the wash house? Explain to us what that was used for.
Well, they had just a mechanical washer,
Mhm.
tub washer, and that's where in the summertime, in the wintertime, I don't know how she did it. She had to heat her water,
What
sort of
stove did she use?
just a range.
Cobs and coal. And
Cow
wood.
chips, when
Cow
it was,
chips.
You did
Yeah.
burn cow chips.
Yeah.
yeah.
In Depression, when we were very poor, we didn't have money to buy coal, and there weren't that many trees because they were dead. They were cut down to dead. And cobs from the corn.
There weren't very many trees, I imagine.
Oh
at that
yes,
time,
the
or were
trees were here, and in fact, there was cherry trees and mulberries. And Mom would go out in the morning and pick fresh cherries or mulberries for our breakfast, and all that was so good.
They did not own this land, did they?
No,
Correct?
they rented it from George Reisinger, a bachelor, who owned it. And he owned it until Oscar T. Nelson, who had passed away, but his widow, Liz Newman, bought this. So this is still in that name.
What were the crops that you raised at that time? And also, how was this 160 acres as well?
Yes, and it was corn and oats and alfalfa.
Any livestock to be raised?
Yeah, he had to milk cows and we had chickens here.
And how many horses did you
I don't remember. Maybe
But he farmed with horses. He never, ever in his farming life had a tractor or any mechanical equipment. It was all very crudely done.
And all the water that you used was from?
Came from that window.
deep well,
That window
pumped with
pumped our
wind.
water. And if we didn't have wind, we didn't have water. But we had a tank for the cattle that the water, you know, when the wind blew, it filled the tank with water. And then there was a cistern, they called it, that was below where water would be stored. And when the windmill was not running, when the wind wasn't blowing, we would have to pump this by hand to get water.
That cottonwood tree up there in the southern birch or whatever, they weren't there. And the trees weren't that in front of the house at that time. They're later that they came. And to the east there, too, that close. The orchard and trees were more down where these others were.
What did you use for toilet facilities?
We had the outhouse.
Where is it?
It's back by, I don't know if they've got it yet or not. They modernized this because just last year or the year before, the grandson lived here and farmed for his dad.
And we used like Sears catalogs for toilet paper.
or cobs.
Our Debbie knows about
So that's enough.
So you didn't have like toiletries in those days?
No, catalogs was very nice. We didn't know. We didn't have Kleenex. Everything was handkerchiefs or
Yeah.
no paper items.
No. Then we should go back to that too, using cloth handkerchiefs. Just think of the trees we would save. They wouldn't have stepped on all these trees for Kleenex.
Got members of the family born here at this birthday?
Yes, I was born in LaRiene, Cleveland. So I was born November 24, 1922. I'm our little brother here.
Yeah, I was just a little thing then.
When were you born?
1925. And we moved, so I was about a year old when we went to.
Did they use midwives in that time?
I think our grandmother.
Yeah.
Our grandmother was a
no,
midwife.
well, Dr. Jensen lived me on his birthday.
Yeah. That's
Oh,
right.
that's right, Dr. Simpson.
But for the others, it was great-grandmothers?
No, our grandmother.
No,
Our
we-
mother's mother.
No, it
Dr.
was
McCrae, she used to go
Esther's sister. What was her name? Josie delivered some of the girls.
I didn't remember that.
Josie was my godmother. Maybe she would have been. Josie. No.
Mother and Bernard Sjo lived on the hill up here, so we were close to Grandma, and Grandma could come and help babysit.
So you're saying up on top of the hill where the grain bins and
Where
the
the
grain
trees
trees
are.
are? So everybody was in a fairly close proximity at all times.
Yes, then when we moved south, they did too.
Okay, thank you. The next location that we are stopping by is the next place where they lived at, which is located 2 miles due west of Newman Grove, right on the northwest quarter section of the land. It's, interestingly enough, it's located directly across the road from where my parents, Clarence and DeLoris Nelson, are currently living at. The field itself is completely covered in corn these days, and all the buildings and everything that they did live in are no longer here. But that is why we hope to have them be able to describe it as best as they can remember what the area did look like. So if you guys could give us some sort of idea of what buildings were like around here, if there were any trees, and it was located, I imagine, right, the farmstead anyway, right on this, right near the intersection, understanding that, right? How many buildings were there?
Well, there was a barn and a granary. What else? The house, of course. Outhouse.
Outhouse. But,
And there were trees in the front yard. I remember we had a lot of trees.
We had a yard with a fence.
Very nice. But it was a small house. Very small.
how many rooms were in the house?
4.
Four,
Well,
four rooms.
yes, it
Four
was a
with a shanty.
kitchen and a dining room and 2 bedrooms and a shanty.
Now, if I remember correctly, I think I heard at one time there was like an indoor toilet facility of some sort inside, or was that true or not?
Not in this place. We didn't have running water.
No running water whatsoever.
No electricity.
You never had electricity here either. So at these 2 locations we also looked at so far, there were no telephones either, correct?
We had a telephone.
There
Yes,
was
Crane
that's
type.
right.
There was?
I remember because it was a wall-hanging one and it had a little shelf that came out. I remember walking in and it hit my head so hard that I didn't, I just went and flopped on the bed and then I woke up later. I must have passed out. But, you know, we got a bunch of kids and everything.
Was it when you dialed someone like it was too long and short, or
Yeah,
you cranked the?
Crank it.
and
They
that
have
was-
them that you can buy around, you know, or antique.
So they had a switchboard in town, is that how
Yeah.
that worked?
Everyone knew what you were saying on the telephone.
Now the granary that you speak of, is that, was that like with ear corn, was that like with just straight?
Oats mainly.
Pure corn, and William and Dad built it, and I remember they took me to town with them, and I was sitting on top of all this lumber, and all of a sudden, I guess they went to pay for the lumber, and the horse started up and stopped, and I fell head over heels down between the horse head, and I split my head open. They had to take me to for a few stitches on my head, and of course when I came back home, I didn't want to tell anybody that, so I kept on wearing my hat. And then finally my mother realized that something had happened. But
So what were the crops that they raised here while they were here?
Corn and oats.
And alfalfa.
Was this area like bad for weeds?
Yeah.
How did you have to take care of the weeds? How was that?
Dolores
With a good
knows
old
more.
hoe in your hand, pull 'em.
And we were paid to chop cockleburrs, but I didn't like doing that.
How
I
much
didn't
were
look
you
for-
paid?
Nickel an hour.
Yeah, something like
But
that.
Dolores wanted a pair of hoopers. Tell them about that.
Yes, I had my jeans, like they call jeans now, with the triangular patch on each side of the leg, either in green or red. And boy, did I work so I could get those for $3.
And Bernum, what did you do?
Well, when we go out, I didn't get anything for doing all this work. So I got discussed at the end of the road. I go across the street, a road, and play with Charles Brown
Because they lived over the hill.
over the hill. And that's where they were cutting those cockleburrs.
Yeah, could you speak up just a little bit too, if you could? Now, was Lawrence born here at this location or not?
He was born in the house in Newman Grove that was a hospital.
So
called
while
a
you were
hospital.
living here
Yes.
then?
Yes.
Okay.
And Dad took Mom into town. I remember, I didn't know Mom was pregnant even. I mean, at that age, innocent kids nowadays know it ahead of time. But anyway,
What age were you?
I was about, let's see, how old is she now? And I'm 17.
She's 65.
I
So
suppose
you're
I
about
was
7 or 8.
Yeah.
7.
And Dad come home then and told us that we had a baby brother. And that was, knew anything was happening. He was
Delivered by a doctor.
Were there any surgeries or anything involved in the family?
Well, I attended school up here in Harbottle School, District 62, Madison County, and I contracted pneumonia. I guess I was a weakling because I was thin and tiny.
And I was always fat.
Irvin used to call me Bones.
And I was called Butch.
Tub.
It's out now for posterity.
Well, anyway, my mother always said they had a furnace, but she thought because I sat closer to the wall that I caught cold and just couldn't throw it. So I had pneumonia. Well, I kept getting worse and worse, and so that I had double pneumonia. Well, they didn't know if I'd live or not, but on Monday morning they operated then. And I had a big swelled, filled with pus on my side.
The lung.
In the lung, yes. So they had to go in and cut that. And when they did, it flew all over the ceiling at the hospital. And the nurse that was next to Dr. Morse, Dr. Morse said, take her, she passed out, and lifted her over me to Dr. Jensen. And then he took her to Anna Stockton. But I was a sick person, and they didn't, I don't know why they'd wait, but waited if I lived long, they'd operate the next morning. And they had to take a piece of my rib, so I have an indentation to drain the.
Just like they took Adam's rib.
Yeah.
What
How
did
did
they
they-
make another review?
How did they celebrate the holidays, by the way? And we're talking
Old
Thanksgiving,
settlers
Christmas.
picnic.
Yeah, and so forth.
Down west of town, I remember all those trees, and they had these big water tanks filled with watermelon, and free watermelon, and all the fun with
When did this occur?
July 4th.
July 4th. So it was Independence Day type thing.
And fairs.
Who was the guy with the long hair that always gave the speeches? He was a senator.
Kelly Clark?
No. I can't think now.
But I remember he had real long hair. From that time, it was a rarity.
Yeah.
White.
Well,
Oh, yes.
did a lot of the farmers have beards or not? Or,
No.
they
Not
didn't.
too much. No.
Well, how did they do it as far as with fireworks? Did they have fireworks or not?
We had
Oh,
some,
yeah.
yeah. I
Sometimes
remember.
More demonstrative than they are now, because it used to be like the flag. They'd light it up at the very end, and you see the actual looking American flag at the very last, playing the music and all that with the fireworks and all that. They had a lot of things that were visual, of various things like Statue of Liberty or whatever.
How about Christmas? What would be like a typical Christmas? And also, if you could tell us the favorite
My battery cut out. I'm sorry.
No.
Was that here?
Yeah.
In
It
the
was,
tank?
yeah, it was in the, it was in the fall, cold. It was real cold. And when he found him, he was,
Wait a minute, Debbie.
oh, he couldn't have been just old enough, like walking, and he was able to straddle, get over to the tank, and he was, like playing the water out there too.
Yeah.
But it hadn't frozen over because it was like in the fall. But it was so cold, the water was, that when Dad found him, he was, floating in the tank. My dad picked him out of there, and the kid was blue. And all that. So they just wrapped him in a blanket, and he did come back. I don't know. It's surprising he did.
Isn't that amazing?
He
They
didn't have
did
any
CPR.
mouth-to-mouth resuscitation.
I don't know what Dad did, but all he did was saw the kid in the tank, was soaking wet, and when they got him, he was just standing there shaking.
How old was Lawrence then? How would you say?
Well,
2 or 3?
Maybe about 3. Something like
I have to look up. Okay. What was your typical Christmas like here, and what was your favorite probably Christmas gift you got? Each one of them.
Well, the tree, they would cut down a little evergreen. And we had the old-time candle holders, and then they lit the candles, which is, danger, of course. But I never did keep any of those. You had some of those clips, don't you,
that.
Ginger?
Flip on with a
You
candle.
took them, I bet you had. Anyway, yeah, that you would put a candle in and light. And as far as gifts, let's see. Dolls. Always liked dolls.
Oh, yeah.
And what did you boys?
Well, I got the soldiers that you stack them up like bowling balls, or bowling pins, and then a wooden ball, and you stand there and throw that. Well, after a while, those things, the wood, they chipped off and stuff like that. But then I ended up with a cast iron truck, a dump truck.
Well, that must have been heavy.
It was, but I mean, and had little rubber tires on it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know whoever got that, because by now, whoever it's
It'd be
a
worth a lot of
souvenir.
money today.
The only thing I remember that the thing was split. It was cast in 2 halves, and on the hood, not the hood, but on the very top, one corner was chipped off.
I
And
don't
remember
I
that?
don't remember that. Maybe when they moved to town,
Well, I'm
they
sure that's
discarded stuff like
Oh,
that.
yeah.
I don't remember.
Did they ever do anything special for New Year's?
no.
Just that they had a special dinner. I mean, something.
Oh, Christmas, one of the things was ludicrous. I always had a
And left.
Tell
And
us
left
what
it.
lutefisk is, by the way, and also
It's a
left
cod
it.
fish that would be shipped in a frozen state, and you soak it in lye water to soften it, and then you boiled it in salt water and put butter on it. And it tastes delicious.
And the grocery store people used to leave this sticks outside the store, frozen. Or that.
Oh, well, that is a ghost story.
And they said something about the dogs used to like to smell those
Oh!
things. Well, we claim that the light killed everything.
What was left made from, or how was that made?
Extra flour and salt and lard and a little cream or milk. And then they make a dough out of it and roll it like pancakes or something. And then they bake it on top of the stove. And we had old ranges where we just baked them on top of the shiny top and flip them over on the other side. People enjoyed it.
Did you guys ever have any special pets?
Four.
Any time while you were growing up?
Fort
had one
here or
dog.
Newman Grove,
Both
in the
places.
south of
Both
Fort.
places.
And
He was-
What was Fort?
Irvin had, that was a dog.
He was a
German.
German police dog.
Irvin had rabbits. You remember
Oh,
his
yeah.
rabbit pen here? When he was
Oh,
little.
you raised rabbits.
He did. And chickens.
He liked
Yeah.
to hunt.
Wasn't that part of his
Oh,
school?
FFA, Future Farmers of America.
And like all kids, he had pranks. So he hooked onto we had these little jacks that you had to jack up cars to fix a tire or take a tire off. And he lined it up with a rope and laid out here in the ravine, ditch next to the road, and put the thing out on the road after cars had left, And somebody come along, oh, there's a jack. So they stopped, and when they got out,
he had them pull it back in the ditch so they couldn't get it. And they said, that Henry Nelson kid, or Cleveland kid. But I'll never forget that.
I thought it was a little bridge, but I just don't
No.
bridge around here.
Were there ever any serious accidents that occurred at this park?
Well, Lawrence fell against the china closet and dashed his head. I remember that was in the town park. And that was quite a serious accident.
No, I don't know.
You don't know.
How about the, did he have a almost drowning incident?
Oh, yes.
When he,
Oh, right. He was probably 2 or 3 maybe. And it was in the fall. And it was cold.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd gone to play outside, and he went to the
Water.
tank, and he fell in. Well, before he drowned, my dad found him there. He was blue, and shivering and all that. And so my dad grabbed him out of there, and I guess he took his coat off or whatever well, they finally got him in the house right away and covered with a blanket and trying to warm him up because he was going into shock.
go ahead.
But other than that, I mean, Lawrence and I used to have to go out and pick up all the cobs out of the pig pen.
And her and I remember stacking them around that to get sideboards, and fill it up. That's what we were doing when Dad come home and said we had a brother.
But anyway, what happened was that Lawrence was always mean. He'd always throw things up in the air, and there was cast iron pieces and chunks of iron and stuff like that. One time it came and hit me in the head.
He was a mischievous. He really was.
And that's why I'm the kooky way
I was going to tell you one time, Jolsteads lived across the road where Dad was born. And they came over to visit because they were good friends of my folks. And Catherine, who lives in California, in this Park Anderson, she decided she wanted to drive, and she had her kids get in the back seat, and she went around by the granary and the barn, and she flew, lost control. Do you remember that?
Yes. And she drove over Dad's disc, and he's with all these trucks.
With his big car. What kind was it?
I don't remember. It could be car. Here we went, right over that disc.
We didn't
Ruined
get
the
killed.
I don't know, ruined the tires, didn't it? Cut her tires.
And then come back.
I mentioned that when she
Oh,
was
did
at
you?
our alumni banquet. And my
remember?
50th on it, she was embarrassed. And I think she remembered, she kind of didn't want to talk about it. I don't blame her.
When the time you were living here, who did live across the road, and what did you think of the place up there on the hill?
Andrew J. Nelson. And they had 2 daughters, I think.
LaRiene was his wife
And Marie and Lillian were the daughters
that were at home.
And they were
And
wealthy.
Johnny.
Oh, yes, of course. And they were a wealthy family, and that was always like the rich people up on the hill. And whenever my mother had them down, she'd use her best china and could give them special luncheon, because they were really happy people. And they had beautiful clothes. Girls were much older than me, but they would give their clothes later to my mother, and she would cut them down and make them.
Another thing too, when she was over that one time, Irvin just pestered the heck out of my mother. One tell me, can't you do Kleveland? No, I got her attention. And what he was telling me was that Mrs. Nelson's hair was put up in a, cummerbund.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that looked like horse's trunk. My mother was so embarrassed, she didn't want to tell her what
Did you make all your clothes, or did you buy them?
Yeah, my mother made all those things.
That's why we never were seamstresses after we grew up.
I had enough of that.
Me too.
What was like your average meals you had then? What did you have? Like
Well, we always had meat and potatoes. We always did meat.
Always
Everybody meat and potatoes and vegetables. And my mother always did a
Pork,
large
mostly.
side of pork. Yeah.
How did they keep the pork then? They didn't
They
have
salted or put it in jars. They
Canned it.
boiled
They canned the pork,
Oh, and that's
it. Boiled it.
so that would keep indefinitely.
Yeah,
Well,
boil,
within
packed
reason.
it, packed it.
Yeah, you use it that year, the following year. It's like your vegetables.
So you slaughtered your own animals right
Yeah.
here then.
Right.
Earl
Yeah,
Dorsey used to
men
come out.
did it.
Yeah, Earl Dorsey used to be the butcher that would come out and have
Okay, thank you. District 62, this was called the old Park Puddles School. It's located 2 miles west and did attend the school at one time or another, was located on a high hill, and behind me, to my right, up there on that hill, was the old Fox farm that was in the area as well. Now we'll turn back to the group and let them explain what it was like to attend school here, if we could. Do you have any special remembrances of this?
We always played marbles, even the girls, and that game kind of no one much plays it anymore. And then we had paper dolls that we'd play in the wintertime down in the kitchen, and something else. Oh, Irvin, he attended here until through his 10th grade year, and he was a 10th grader when we moved south, so he would come up here to school then and finish, and then he went into Newman Grove for his last 2 years.
You could tell me he went all the way from Suffolk, about 5 miles up here. I could think he could.
I think he drove that time.
Were there outhouses located?
And there was a barn back there. Some kids used to
Right, the
corn.
There was only the boys' restroom down there, and
The girls was this corner.
women over here.
And how many teachers would they have here?
2.
Do you have any idea how much they were paid?
Oh, I don't think very much. Because I started teaching in 38 at just $40 a month.
Did you have someplace where you lived at? Was that included? Or
And
was it just your-
no, and then I had just $12 a month though for room and board. Can you speak to that? Give me that.
I started teaching 45 or 50, and the second year, I think it was 55, and then the last 2 years I taught 52, and then it was $75 a month.
What did the teachers have to do to get accredited?
Just passed the examination, 17 examinations.
Normal training.
Normal training, 2 years of normal training when I school. And
No college, right?
no college. But you could teach only 2 years. Then you had to go to summer school for 12 weeks and renew your license.
That's what I was doing when Mom died. Finished the semester or the summer session.
What is the school being used for now?
It's a church by a non-denominational
I remember.
Beautiful inside.
Very nice. I remember I liked to slide down the banister. And I remember we didn't have kindergarten. We started in first grade when we were 5 years old to start school. And I being left, nobody evidently being a left-hander. And I remember sitting there writing like this, and all the kids standing around looking at me felt so foolish because all these kids are watching me write, left hand upside down. And the teacher tried to change me to write like this.
Did you have any Christmas plays here for anyone?
Yeah.
Or no?
Oh, lots of places.
Right, yes, we did. And they even,
Community
I remember
club.
they used to have these black, I don't know what you put on their face, black grease or whatever.
Or
And
stockings.
but nowadays you can't do that.
Uh-huh.
But they used to
Oh,
have
you
it.
can't? I didn't realize.
Oh no, that's
Oh, yes, and we sing those Negro spirituals.
right.
The
That
kids.
was part of it.
Really?
Big red lip. I remember our teacher was Myrtle Laws,
Yes.
She was a good
and
one.
Very
she
good.
wrote beautifully.
Oh, yes.
But
Perfect
I-
penmanship. Paul was
But she did more demonstrative things, like we'd read it, something, and then we'd act. And I remember the trolls
Oh,
and
going
that
over the bridge.
going over the bridge. We used to climb on a chair and crawl across the desk and down on the other side. And you get halfway across, and this whoever the troll is come out and say something, ask who's there.
Yes, right.
Did you remember how?
Yes.
And acting all these things, you remember things.
And now today trolls are popular again, these little trolls. In fact, when our girls were little, they liked the trolls, and now their children are trolls.
By any chance, was Grandpa ever on any school boards?
No,
No.
we never went back to them.
I was going to tell you, we didn't have photographers like we have everybody taking pictures nowadays. So Helly Goss, an old bachelor, would walk the country and carry his stand and his cameras and all, and take pictures everywhere. And of course, when he came to school here one time, well, his little ones were out playing here in the, and run in. We were scared he'd grab us, you know.
We were afraid of him.
Yeah, because he was bearded and all over him.
He was kind of odd.
Yeah, he was, but he did take a lot of pictures. People got to watch him.
And lot of fluid you take with the thing and the flash.
That's right.
When inside, somewhere or they light this and it's flash and fixes the shit.
Did they have spring picnics too?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, we always had a school picnic. And everybody, all the farmers came. Everybody.
Oh, it was a big
It was
affair.
a big affair to have a picnic.
How many at one time students would be in the school?
With both rooms, I suppose about 30.
And how many grades?
And
First to the sixth in this class, and seventh.
Lenora Grubb LaRiene was your high school teacher, and Teresa Johnson, who is still alive, who's in Illinois, was a teacher here in the high school.
What were some of your favorite games?
Oh, we played Annie I over with the ball over this big building, and tag, and
Pom-pom pull away.
yeah, just all kinds of things.
Just the general games.
Yeah.
Was there any times where you experienced a blizzard while you're here and it was pretty difficult to get home, or there was
I don't think the
apprehension?
teachers, none of us got out of it. It was real severe. I don't know.
Did you ever have like a time you had to use the storm cellar?
I remember just going in for maybe practice
Training.
sessions, but never, not otherwise. And that now has been, that storm sewer steel one is up here on the 40 farm now.
Do you remember the time that you were walking home with Mary Jane and these two guys stopped and tried to pick you girls up? And you girls took off across, and there I was, a 5-year-old, and I was running like the devil trying to keep up, but I couldn't run, and I was losing my shoes, and these girls were scared to, you know.
I remember one time someone stopped to pick you up,
Tried to.
the older one, and I didn't want to get in the car because I didn't know that man. We weren't supposed to ride
No,
with
that's
strangers,
right.
but you seemed to know who this person was, and they got in the car, and I dashed into the cornfield and ran, the corn was high, and ran all the way home, and I was scared to death.
We were
Well, it
told
was-
never to ride with anybody.
But you got in the car. You
I don't
never-
But we had Ione Jacobson here, and a man did come, and he tied her in the basement and raped her. And
That
she
was
finally
later.
got loose. Yeah, it was when Arctic went to school. Anyway, then she got loose, and she got to the phone, and she was just hysterical, and called, and I remember Dad and, or Clarence and Doug come up. And then they called the sheriff and everything, They did catch him and all, and he served years in penitentiary, but that was so frightening. So, and then the gypsies used to come so much in our area. Remember how we would get scared on that, and they'd park on that south road down to the corner here? And one time the folks went to town to get groceries, and we were home, and I remember we crawled under the table because we were so scared they'd come up to the house.
They had like a mobile camper, and they pull it right up in our front yard, and
Take over.
and just live there.
Well,
Come to
remember-
our house for eggs and milk, and
Remember when the gypsy women asked for women, if there were any bachelors living here? And so what happened was that they told about William and Chris.
our uncle.
Right. So what happened was they come up there as women, and when William and Chris came back from, working, or wherever, working in a field or that, they come in there, and these gypsy women were naked and scared the hell out of them.
Oh, I don't remember that.
Yeah, they did.
They lived over where?
Yeah,
On
over
the
here.
Lee place.
There's adding a little bit of spice to the story.
But you can't pull
But
off.
gypsies made a lot of wire products, and I remember we bought this thing for hanging the broom, and you put it tied to the wall, and you can hang your broom with it. Or you can buy their brooms or whatever.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Okay, you guys, Debbie? Bob?
The next place that we're at is the second school that some of the children from the family went to. It's District 57. It was called Victory. And it's located 2 miles due west in Newman Grove and 2 1/4 miles south. And it's on the right-hand side of the road, and it's been changed over into a house for someone who's living there currently. All All the children, all of them went here except Irvin and Cal. Now let's go and talk with the kids and see if they can give us any other memories from there at that time. What was it like going to school here?
What?
What was it like going to school here?
Well, it was good. We had quite a few pupils attended here, and nice teachers. I did Lindo and Edith Ferguson and a few like that.
At that time, though, you only had that one building, right? And maybe...
And a
some
barn.
Oh, there was a barn?
For the ponies, when the kids rode ponies. And that was sitting where that building is, that machine shed there.
Did you guys ever have ponies to ride or not?
Yes, we had buckskin horse that we
It was
got
a horse
from
that you used for
horse
farm
trader.
as well.
Mm-hmm.
It was blind.
Yeah, that's what I rode most of the time. We didn't do much.
There was only 8 grades here too.
Take it.
How did they discipline the students?
Well,
Slap them.
They
Lawrence
did.
used to
Physically?
get his hands hit with the sharp edge of the ruler when he wouldn't behave.
Was Lawrence kind of unruly or not?
Well, he's
Mischievous. He
civil.
was an independent individual. He liked to do his thing. I like follow rules.
He got walloped once, and he had his fist on the side of the cheek, and as you notice, he has a cross, I don't know, several.
Well, it took 3
Corners.
times to remove the cyst before it.
Was that from school?
From the teacher whacked me.
So that was okay in those days then?
Oh, definitely. That's why we had discipline.
Did any of you ever teach here or not?
I taught him.
Which years were those?
1942 and 43. I had 14 students,
What grade?
grades 1 to 8.
So a lot of classes here will only be one person then in one class.
Yeah.
Mine
When
was,
you taught.
mine was very big. There was 3 of us.
Oh.
Was there any specific kind of instances at this school that bring back memories or not?
Well, when I taught here, the last day of school, we had this huge rainstorm. And the Shell Creek flooded, and we had moved into town, and Dad and we lived on the north side of the creek, and I couldn't cross the creek to come to teach. So the last day of school, we had to make it up on Saturday. But the children were able to get here, and they climbed in the window, and they trashed the schoolhouse. I remember that Brian boy was the oldest one.
Was
About
he
13,
did
yes,
they attend here?
yes, and
Bob?
I was furious. And so when we came back to school, then the following Monday, I think that was when we finished it. They all had to work and clean up the mess.
And we lived just across the field over about half a mile across.
Yeah, there's nothing up there right now, but
No.
about a half mile through there up on that hill.
And that's like the first one there.
We had one bad storm, blizzard, and I remember that I went to go to school, and so Fergie was the teacher, and so I came, but
Miss Ferguson.
I couldn't see. I couldn't see the road or anything like that. So what I did, I followed the fence posts and came to school because we were walking over the snow and all that. I came to school, and I was the only one here. So I stayed for half a day, and then she sent me home. But I don't know why my parents would let me go,
That's
because
right.
you could not see in front of your hand. The blizzard.
Right.
Well, I suppose she insisted.
Well, I don't know.
Why
Maybe
didn't we want to go?
took an opportunity to stay home.
We was probably out of school.
No, I don't
We
know.
weren't as
No.
intelligent and studious as you.
So the other school that you went to was in Madison County, but this one is in Platte.
And we took our country exams that to be able to.
63, wasn't it?
Right.
63.
What
And
type of exam?
what was that?
Grade.
What exams you said? Country?
Country examinations. You had to pass them to be able to get a permit to go to a high school.
Really?
To otherwise for tuition purposes we didn't have to pay tuition, but we did have to pass examinations. But I remember that I had almost a perfect score in all those tests they used to give me. The only thing I
Smart
couldn't.
one.
The
So
only,
you were the smart one out of the family.
no,
huh?
no. The only thing was that I got a 93 in art. The others were like perfect scores.
And he
Don't
should
think
have
I'm
got
crazy.
He should have got 100 in art because he was so good in that.
No, but
He
you
did
can't.
all my artwork for me.
But you can't get a. I mean, that's one thing. No one's perfect.
Were there any bullies in school? Any bullies that come to
Well,
mind?
there was the Lundeen boys, Art and Floyd were
Did
kind
you
of.
think they were kind of ornery?
Oh, they were.
Were they?
Oh, they used to have ideas about you girls.
Oh, I know that, but but were they ornery?
Well, they used to take Lawrence and me, and there's a flagpole here, and then they'd catch us and put our feet and lock us so we couldn't get up.
What?
Oh,
You know, they set you down,
Uh-huh.
and you get your legs crossed, and
Right.
you know,
okay.
and you can't get up. So we'd sit there almost all during the class, the recess, and then when it was time to go back in, and then come up and put something else back in again.
You should stay around now until Art and Floyd comes and tell us.
Well, they
They're
won't.
How
coming.
mean they were. I remember when we went to District 62 Harbottle School, those mugged what was
Maggie.
what were their last
Duckin'.
names? She was so
D-O-K-K-E-N.
mean. She would put us in a culvert, a long culvert, like at the top of the hill, and then send it rolling down the hill. Here are we little kids in this culvert rolling down the hill. Wasn't that cool? Yes. I do it.
Okay, so
She's
thank you
Mrs.
very
Johnny
much.
Nelson.
She's reformed. She's not like that.
Okay. Hello. The spot that we're at right now is located 2 miles due west and 2.5 miles due south of Newman Grove, right on the south-west quarter section. This was the fourth farm that Nels farmed and the third farm that kids were involved with living at. They lived here from 1931 to 1944. There's nothing out in this field outside of corn and a center pivot out in the center there. But approximately the spot where the center pivot is at, towards that direction, was where the farmstead was at. Now, if I could, I'd like to ask the members of the family that one question that pops into mind is that why did they end up moving so often during those years?
Certain years, and maybe he got a better deal renting from Bachelor John Nelson than he did from George Reisinger or from Mr. and Mrs. McKay, and maybe that was him.
Could you please describe what the farmstead did look like up there?
It was a two-story house. The one on the McKay farm was one story.
Uh-huh.
This was a bigger house. Oh, that was another reason. That house was far too small for 5 children. And
Okay.
this was a much larger house. And upstairs, upstairs, had 2 bedrooms and a storeroom upstairs. And downstairs was a bedroom, kitchen, dining room, and living room.
And you're located fairly close to the school right here too as
Yeah.
well, right? And school happens to be right over towards facing First Town Center where we're standing at.
That's Victory.
That's Victory.
57.
Now also, I think you were pointing out that located due north of here over the hillside there, you can see where we've been in the past on this video and towards those trees looking up there and the roadside. If you want to point that out one bit. Can you see anything? Is there anything that we can see?
Yeah, I can see how it's done. Right.
Okay. And over through the trees here. Okay. Now, also during the time that you were here, when another section of my grandma passed away here, is that correct?
Yes,
Right.
it did.
What year was that and what were the circumstances that led us to that?
That was August 3rd, 1941, a couple months before World War II began. She had the flu in the spring, and then she had hay fever, and she seemed to go downhill after having had the flu.
Uh-huh.
And originally I think got the flu. I had infection from an injection in my leg for acne, and by Dr. McRae. And so I think when she was sitting in the doctor's office, people were coughing, and they were ill with the flu, and I really think that's where she got the flu. And that was,
How did Grandpa find her then?
well, we went to town on Saturday night as was custom, but she didn't go because she wasn't feeling well. And we talked to our cousins and our aunts and uncles, and they had said they were coming out the next morning to visit her, knowing that she had been sick. She made me say, won't they be surprised when they come and see I'm not sick anymore, because she was feeling much better. And we all went to bed. Sunday morning, Dad woke up, and he came to the bottom of the steps, and he said, Mama's gone. And a shocking, it was very scary. We ran downstairs, and we saw her lying.
How did they take care of the funeral arrangements at that time?
Well, they took her down to what is Barnes grocery store now, was the mortuary, and there was a furniture store also in the back. They had the mortuary part, and then they, after they had embalmed her and all, and put her in her casket, then they brought her out to the house here, and she laid in state then until the funeral date.
In the living room.
Yes.
Did they call it a parlor or not?
It was
Our
like a
living
parlor.
room was somewhat a parlor.
Yeah.
But it was the Jackson,
Jackson.
Brom,
It was prom.
doing the took care of the service.
How did that affect Grandpa then later on? Did he change or
But just lonely, and then I was teaching and took Bernum and Lawrence to high school as I went east of town to teach at the school, and of course I had to cook, and he never wanted button bread, so I had to bake every weekend, and after Mary's parents, he was used to bread from the store, so we got to use the button bread.
Well, when we lived here, we didn't have a phone, because Dolores had to go over to Leonard Johnson to look at those trees out of there. There's no house there, I don't believe now. But there's a house over there, isn't there?
Oh, yes,
It was a fruit
Joy.
farm.
She moved to town and the son's
anyway?
And so Dolores went over there to call the doctor, and he did come out. And I remember Bernum and Lawrence were quite young. You were what, 15? And Lawrence was 13. And I remember he put his arm around on their shoulder, and he said, you'll be all right, or something like that. Do you remember that?
Who?
Dr. Jensen.
But he said it
Dr.
was
Jensen?
He was
Yeah,
the one
he
that
was the
came out.
doctor.
Well, he came
He
out.
had to come
Yeah.
out to declare her deceased. And then he went
he
back
called
to
it
town, and
leakage to the heart.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the report read.
Yeah.
And her legs had swollen, her ankles were all swollen that week.
Yeah.
And that's why we stopped to see Dr. Jensen to tell her. I don't know if he gave us pills for that or not. For her.
Why did Grandpa finally move from this place then?
He couldn't go away from the army. He was
Yeah.
drafted.
Well, first of all, farming became more of a problem for him because he only had horses.
Uh-huh.
All right. Now tractors,
Just listen. That
Right.
was sick.
tractors. Everyone was coming in farming with tractors, and he just couldn't keep up with it. And so it just didn't prove possible for him to continue farming like that. He would not switch over. He kept on saying, well, the tractor could go through there, and they just packed down the soil. So he didn't believe in farming that way, and he decided to retire.
What were the 30-30s, by the way? What were they like on the farm place?
Oh my, I helped Dad out here, and it was tumbleweeds, up to the fence. We had fences then.
They actually had tumbleweeds.
Oh,
Oh,
and they
rocky.
just rolled and drought, and it was terrible.
You had to pull them away from the fence and then burn them.
Burn them.
Did you have an experience, too, that when, I believe some of the horses got electrocuted and what happened with that? It was over on this spot, right?
How many was it? Three?
Two.
Or was it two?
2 horses and a cow.
Fox, I think the blind horse that we used to ride.
No, no.
He was
Wasn't
thrashing.
that-
He was
wasn't that-
thrashing at the time, and
Right.
others were here with their teams too, and they were in for lunch at the time.
So what happened was a lightning bolt hit
Yeah.
the fence and it followed it. And,
Yeah.
and those horses were like a
They had
livelihood, right?
their heads over the fence. They had
And they were not like sport horses.
No, they
were
were-
they were
work
work
horses,
horses.
right?
It worked
And
for
that
him.
was a major loss to Dad because,
Then he
there
only
were
had
two
2
horses.
horses left.
Right.
And you had to change off every other day or half day.
Give the horses a rest.
Uh-huh. What was it like when World War II broke out? Now, you were living here. Some of you were
No,
there.
you were in town.
No,
No,
back in
no.
41.
Were you
She
still
was
on the farm?
Right. You?
41, the war started, and Mom had just died 2 months before.
What do you remember about that?
I remember George, one of his students, who said, isn't it nice that Mrs. Cleveland won't have to know about the war? That she,
Uh-huh.
But Dad brought you out to our place. Frank and I were living out And then I took you and for Lewin Smith, you know,
Well,
up
yeah.
to,
Right, that was in 43.
and
That was when he was,
He went after he graduated, he went to junior college.
yeah.
And he boarded and roomed in a lady, a couple, wasn't it? No,
What?
When you went to
oh, that was
junior
the
college.
when he was in Norfolk.
Walsucker. They lived next to Johnny Carson's home. And he's the same age guy. And then after that, I lived there for about 2 or 3 months, and Melvin Anderson decided that I should move in with them and stay with them. And Larry Stevens' mother at that time was also staying there.
Was it?
There's another lady. No, not her grandmother.
Oh, Fanny.
But
And didn't you stay with another couple who was up with
Walter Rocket.
That's one I remember.
When did Urban leave finally from
After graduation, because he had left in high school, and C.O. Gustafson told us not too long before he died, before he got real ill, he said he remembers when Irvin took off for Kansas, he carried his suitcase, and he went down to the highway down there and flagged his way hitchhiking. Isn't
So
that,
you're
he said
straight
I
from
could
high school?
still see him as
Straight out of high school.
1934, because he knew he did not want to live in a farm. And he got a job at a gas station.
at Delphi.
Took a lot of guts.
He did, but he was persevered.
Well,
He
he
What
wasn't
did your
a
folks
farmer.
think of that?
Oh, he worked downtown for Kennedy during high school.
I
Not much
don't
you can think
know.
about it.
I
Not
don't
much
know,
you-
but it was impressed Theo, and he died at the age of 90-some.
He
Now,
died recently. But,
Well, like we had the grasshoppers that
oh yes,
ate all
came
crop.
through, and like the corn was fairly high, and in the day's time they would clean from here all over to
just
No.
lean it.
the field.
Really, right.
Yeah, and all you had was
Well, that was
well, the thing was there was no crop that year.
Yeah. Well, what did you do?
And then hail would come,
You're out.
and you had your crops all ready to harvest, and hail would come, completely destroy the whole crop. So there was nothing. So during Depression, they used to have a truck that would come out, remember, and they had grapefruit and oranges and margarine. Commodities that they would give.
And of course, we had chicken, so we had eggs and chicken, and then Dad had hogs. So
Yeah,
And we
we
had-
milk cows?
oh yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I even
Oh,
had
that's what
cows.
we
How
used.
many? Like,
Oh, we probably had about 6 that we milked.
you ever keep any sheep for the wool? Or?
No,
They
not
had no
really.
sheep.
Okay.
No, we just had cattle, milk cows.
One time Irvin wanted to go into town. He asked me, he said, I'll give you a dime if you milk a cow for us. So I milked his cow for a dime an extra, and he never paid me. So years ago, I saw him and Chester. I said, no, Ellen, you still owe me that dime because I milked your cows. He pulled out his pocket and gave me a dime, and I still have it.
Oh,
Okay, well, thank you
Pretty
very
good.
much. That's very good.
We could walk from our farm here over to Grandma Vineyards and go down this road and turn to the right. It's about half a mile this way and another half mile. She was right over in there, way on that next road.
That was your grandma on
That
what
was
side?
Grandma Vineyards, my mom's mom. Who was close by. We used to walk over there a lot. And Bernum, when he was little, he had a red hand. And that's the picture that you see on Burnham's wall. That red hand is where that picture was taken over there. You should be doing that.
This is Shell Creek Lutheran Church. It's the church that the Cleveland family has used for, 4 generations of people going through their marriages, confirmations, funerals. And the 3 children that we have here today are up on the steps, Bernum, LaRiene, and DeLoris. When was the church built at? What was the typical Norwegian service like here back in those days?
Thing was
the
spoken.
songs and the.
We couldn't understand a word.
Oh, the kids could not understand it.
No, my mother couldn't understand a word, so she'd always take us up to Nazarene Church to see the Holy Rollers.
Oh, they weren't holy.
No.
What do you mean by holy rollers?
No, they when they had their services, sometimes they would really.
Well, they sing
joyfully, you know.
Oh, and they get up and say,
Where was the
yes,
Nazarene
brother,
Church
Hallelujah.
located?
hallelujah.
Yeah, where was the Nazarene Church located at?
Where it is yet now,
On Main
In town here?
on the main.
within the main street.
So did Grandpa speak Norwegian?
Yes.
Yes, and understood. He enjoyed coming to those services.
And
Sometimes we kids had to come along too, and we'd sit in there and listen.
So that was about once a month.
Yeah.
But what we like to do is during Norwegian services is go over there and put those black walnuts up there too.
so they did not have Norwegian services every week.
No,
It was only
once
once
a month.
Right.
Do you remember any of the pastors you had at that time?
We had, well, Reverend Paulson was from me, and he was
And Gundale was
Paulson.
here, and
Paulson, Reverend Paulson, he was a nice man, the older man, but he was
All 5 children were baptized in
Yeah.
during that church?
Flagstaff was when Irvin was here.
But all 5 were baptized.
He
in
always had a
Baptist
long
church.
white beard, and Doug, or not Doug, but Irvin was on me too.
You look like Colonel Sanders.
Yes, he did. Reverend Fleischer was like that.
Okay, thank you.
And the reason for that
window on the
window being there is because Dad would only sit in the back. He wouldn't go up. He just point that out to South
This window is in memory of our mother, Mrs. Bessie Cleveland. It says in memory of Mrs. Bessie Cleveland. When she died, the memorial money given in her memory was used to buy this window. And the different funds were added, I'm sure.
The place where we're at now was the residence of where Grandpa Nels Cleveland, his parents, Christine and Henry Cleveland lived at, and it's located 1/2 block south of the swimming pool in Newman Grove, Nebraska. Let's go up for a closer look and talk with the kids about their grandparents.
Shin.
Tell us what your grandparents were like, and also their full names, if you could.
Henry Cleveland, did he have a middle name? Senior. Henry Cleveland Senior. His wife was Christine Elizabeth Mallon Cleveland, and I named our youngest daughter after her, and after my husband. She was in a wheelchair, the way I remember.
Bedridden.
Bedridden or in a wheelchair. I remember she had a stroke. And I remember my grandfather spoke mostly Norwegian, but he mixed it in with English, and he would say something, ask us a question, and we couldn't understand. And I said, what? He said it again. And about the third time, he gets so mad, he calls that Doomcock or something like that. You know, dumbhead.
It was
you know,
we were Nelson Jensen
Jensen?
What's the Jensen?
girl.
Oh, I didn't know that. That sounds like you.
Not me.
But
So they retired at this residence?
I remember him
Right.
as letters.
And then died here?
Yes,
Then?
they passed away here.
Approximately what years then?
I was in high school.
It'll be 36.
Probably
About 36, I would say.
she died first and then he died. He was
Not too long after,
no,
about
about a
3
year.
months.
It was about a
Oh,
year.
you?
I think.
Could have been.
They were both in their late 80s.
So
We could not speak English.
Not at all.
Oh, really?
And she always had a candy dish on her dresser in her bedroom. We'd go to visit her and she'd lay in her bed and we couldn't speak to her anymore.
They were
She was a
those
very
red and white men.
yes,
sweet,
pink,
little-
the pink one.
And she brought to me, took one of her little wine glasses when I was very ill in the hospital, and filled that with those little men, and brought to me the night before I had my surgery.
And when I like to read when I was a child, I remember Mom had them out for dinner on the Thanksgiving or what. And I had just started, I had read the whole Bible. But they were so proud of that they had me read a chapter.
Were they very religious?
They were quite religious.
He didn't really go to church at all.
No,
He did, and he'd go over, but
Well, she could.
She could,
because
no.
he was invalid.
He was a farmer all his life, then, is that correct?
Well,
When
the
he
last
retired?
couple of years he lived here. He was retired.
before he retired, he was fine.
And he had done quite well on the farm. He had, in those days, quite a bit of money in the bank. And then when the bank went broke, the bank, good was one, and he lost all of his money in the bank.
Well,
And he died poor.
okay. Well, thank you very much.
As did others.
Okay, thank you. 5th Street and Hale on Main Street in Newman Grove, Nebraska. And what we want to do is kind of circle around here and kind of pinpoint what some of the stores that were here at that time. Now, I know as we do this, we're going to have to speak fairly loud just because there's going to be a little bit of cars coming by and that. So, first of all, if we could, what was on this particular intersection right here where we have the graph? What did they used to have here?
There was a big grocery store with balcony called the Constellation Store.
Okay. And down behind it, I believe that's American Legion right now. Has that been there for quite a while? American Legion, yeah?
Well, not too long.
No. It wasn't here when I was here. It wasn't here when I was here.
Now, as we move here more to the right, first of all, on the corner here, I believe was the old Hoggins grocery store. Now, that was there for a lot of years, right? Is that where you just lied your grocery store?
Well, George Olson had a grocery store up on the
Think
other
that's not
corner.
about it.
George Olson had a grocery store up on the other corner east here. And so that was a grocery store also in
Okay.
competition.
That was one we mainly went to.
Okay, and to the left here was the old dairy creamery. Now, I remember as well, didn't they at one time have like, you bring in cream there and sell your cream and other products, right? And that's where you always sold it at, correct?
And chickens.
Okay. Oh, chickens we did buy there as well.
Right.
Okay. Down there on the right, across the street, about the third store from the very end, where you see a sliding front door and a black brick, that was the old movie theater, am I correct? What did it used to cost to go to a movie there?
25 cents.
Can you remember any particular movies you saw there or any stories?
Little Women. I was in high school and a freshman. And that was the first and only show I saw for many, many years.
Well, I thought it was called Birth of a Baby.
Yes, my mother gave me permission to go see it because you were going and I was only 12.
Did I see that too? I
really
saw
did.
Little
Yes.
Women.
But you saw versus baby. You were 3 years older than I.
Oh.
And so you were old enough. You had to be 13. But
And we-
you said I could go. Remember, after you went in the service, Lawrence and I used to go to 2 or 3 times a week. They changed the movies a couple times a week. And we went to every movie that was there. And sometimes Eva May and I would, but Lawrence would go with us. I can't believe that my brother would go with us. He's winning. So.
What was the typical Saturday night like then in town?
The
Popcorn
streets
stand.
were full.
And there was a popcorn stand right here. A
They're
wagon.
actually full.
Or in that corner? A wagon.
Well,
And
there were
stores
two.
stay open later?
Yeah.
Yes, they stayed open until 1 o'clock. About.
What? No.
Yes, oh yes, we stayed up 12:30, 1 o'clock, and because what happened was the farmers would work late, okay?
Dark.
Yeah.
It's after 9 o'clock.
And then the only time they come in was to socialize, and I remember it was 12, 1 o'clock, we would start to still be open, and they'd, what was before Olson? They would stay open as long as they had a customer in there.
And Mom was charged for groceries because we always had money to pay for it.
Uh-huh.
So when you sold some corn or you sold something like cattle, then she'd have money to pay off the bill, and then he would give you a bag of candy. And they never called it bags, and they called it sack. And they still call it sack in Nebraska. I noticed.
Like going down this street and also on the other street, what were some of the stores that are no longer here that were here at one time?
There was a little cafe next to Barnes's grocery store run by Ingrid Morstead. Coffee shop.
And there used to be a post office over here. Was a
Right.
bank. That was a bank when my grandfather lived over there.
Grandfather outlawed from his money.
Yeah, some bank.
Okay, that was one of
What's
those.
the thing?
That was a bank that closed down during the Depression. Okay.
And Sam knows Mark? What? Do you know what that, the one that was a post office in the basement of the town?
And
just
they've always had a
empty building
drugstore
model.
here as well. I know
We had two hearings
you all have like leadership here as well? Auto
We did the
leadership?
solutions, we're down there, that last building on the way down there.
On the right? Okay.
We had a lot of cars.
Ford, the Kennedys had Ford.
Oh, yeah, Kennedy's down. Urban that other Kennedy.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay.
This is the Newman Grove High School. It's the public schools for the Newman Grove district. All 5 children went here and completed their high school education here and graduated. Let's go and talk to the children again and see if they have any recollections on their high school days. Okay, Steve, what were some of your favorite memories of your high school days here?
Well, my first year as a freshman, I was selected as the only girl in the cheer, or not cheer, but pep club, and when it was Bill Hastings, which was boy, and Irvin always told me never to take home ec, which was done once. So I never took home ec.
How about you guys?
Not really.
I took Latin and, you know.
They had
we took-
Latin in those days?
Yes, and that was a normal training. I mean, that was, still in case you went on to college, you had to have Latin.
How many years of
2
Latin?
years.
Was that standard for everybody?
No.
No.
Was it 2 years? Oh.
And, well, I mean, no, it wasn't a subject you had to take.
It was for college preparatory.
College preparatory courses.
I see.
That's what I think.
And she and I both took 2 years of normal training, junior and senior high school. I mean, junior and senior.
What's your average graduating class size for that time?
I had a big one.
60. Bernum was a large.
Right. That was, what, 76 or 78 students. And that was unusually large.
And what was prom night like at that time? Or
I
did
don't
you
remember.
have prom night?
They had a prom night, I don't remember.
We did.
I probably didn't even attend because I was out on the farm.
Uh-huh.
We did.
I attended.
Did they have any special dances or anything?
Dances were good.
Not
They were not
that
presented.
nobody really knew how to dance. It wasn't like
She went to dance, she went to Lindsay and Humphrey.
Oh,
They
really?
didn't have dances in Newman Grove. They just had.
Really? Were there any other organizations you belonged to while you were here?
I was in girls CAA, girls athletics, and I earned a letter.
We were in Girl Reserve.
What was that?
And we, Girl Reserve, it was called for girls.
Uh-huh.
Middle school. And we were cheerleaders. I was 2 years and 1 year.
Cheerleader? No.
I mean, yes,
Pep
we
club.
were pep club. I mean, we were in pep club. I was 1 year and she was 1 year.
1 year I was out. I don't remember. That was senior year.
no, because I was too small. I was like, I think I
75?
weighed 75 pounds, something like that. And
How about Irvin and Lauren?
Irvin, no, he wanted to be in football, but my mom was afraid to, I think she was signed for him.
Then you get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And if you got hurt, you could not on the farm.
Oh, so she went out allowed to play then.
But that was kind of rough on him. I don't know, he did, or did he play?
I don't remember. The boys belonged to Peace Farmers in America. All 3 of you. They took-
No.
Not you?
Mm,
Urban did. as well.
Irvin was Fisher from America.
Wasn't Lloyd?
I don't
I don't think
Oh,
so.
no, maybe
No.
not. No, because he moved to town. and she didn't.
Okay, thank you.
I asked, what was your best day about going to school? What'd you like to...
That wasn't that bad.
One time, the tan house down there was a hospital, Newman Grove Hospital, and that's where Lawrence was born. He was the only one in our family born in the hospital. The rest of us were born in our farm home. And later that was converted into a home, and our Uncle Bernard and Aunt Tina Cleveland lived there one time.
And that's right across from the high school, right?
Yes.
Hello, we're on the highway going out south of town. This is or north of town, excuse me. This is Highway 45, Highway 45. On the right-hand side of the road is the house where Nels Cleveland lived at when he retired from farming from the last farm we were at. He lived here from the years 1944 to 1966. Okay, yeah, I stand corrected. We lived here until 1968. I would like to have the children, if they could, explain how the house looked at that time and how you actually survived through Social Security or what.
He did receive a Social Security check.
Uh-huh.
He also worked.
Speak up a little bit too.
He also worked out in for the county, certain jobs on the road, county work, and he also went out to Washington and spent some time working for with Bernard. And what was
In
the
a flour mill.
was it a flour mill? Yeah. And other than that, I was
He
gone.
dug great.
He
Very
did. He
great.
was a grave digger.
Yeah.
But
And he helped farmers
right, he worked
on a farm.
part time, you know, not full time. It just
He helped parents.
yeah.
What did the place look like at that time?
It's quite different than what it is today.
After Bob King bought it, he did
Bob
an
King bought it
interior-
in
after
1968?
and had it on.
I see. Now, didn't Grandpa, when he lived here, he also had to use corn tops for heat in the wintertime?
No, he had a coal oil. I mean, oil stove.
Oh, no, that's
Yeah,
Right.
and if I remember correctly, too, he used corn tops as well.
Well,
yeah,
you
we
could
did
have
Kitchen stove.
in the
Oh,
kitchen stove
stove,
For
yeah,
cooking.
old style.
for cooking it whenever you wanted to, but primarily he used a hot plate.
Yes, and
He
I
did.
have that in the basement. We use it for popcorn popping.
And if you could explain the circumstances that happened in 1967 as well, when he
Expo.
fell down and he was incapacitated for a while.
Okay, the Sjo family and us went to Expo in Canada, and when we got back to the States, we took off and went down to see Clarence's niece down in Philadelphia or Pennsylvania. And we got a call there from Pauline, our Clarence's sister-in-law, and said that Dad was in the hospital and that we should come home as soon as possible. So we took off and had to rush home then. And it happened. He had not been well, and he had fallen, slipped, evidently, in the bathroom, and he couldn't get up off his back. So he was between the tub and the wall and struggling. He had bruises and just awful. And the window was open, and the cat was meowing, or they thought, that's what the neighbors thought, because the next door neighbors who live here yet, Volker, she heard this noise, and he was calling for help, seeing she thought it was a cat. And so finally then Mrs. Sherson had Carl go over and check, and Dad had the doors locked, so then they had to get in, break in, and here they found him. And he was dehydrated so terribly and very ill. And then they took him up to the hospital here. And from then on, well, he kept, deteriorating, failing.
Okay, let's just cut for one moment if we could. Now, did he own this residence or not?
Yes, it's the only house he ever owned. He never owned any farm. He always rented or sharecropped. Gave the owner of the land half of your crop. Isn't that about it?
Well, whatever the
40, 60.
percentage was.
40, 60, or whatever percentage. But he never ever owned a farm or any land, anything.
Now, after the incident in 1967, what happened with him health-wise? And also, if you could lead us into how he ended up in the old people's home, if you will, up in Newman Grove.
Well, she was very good in that. I tell you, she was great because every Sunday she had him out for dinner and she brought in food for him a lot. Without her, I don't think he would have survived.
Of
Because
course, we cleaned. The girls helped me.
and she did his laundry all the time. And also, when he did eat his own meals at home, he didn't cook. He just opened up cans of sauce
and
peaches
jelly.
and pears and
He loved grape chili on bread, didn't he?
yeah.
And
that was-
rolls.
and you can't survive on that kind of a diet very well. I think that's why he was weak and had fallen in the bathroom.
But think, when he was at the home, he only had, it was $165 a month. And now it's way up in thousands they have to pay a month to
Now,
be there.
what year did he go into the home? Why did he have to go into the home?
Because he was just not able to take care of himself. He was paralyzed kind of on one side.
Did he suffer a stroke?
Yes. When
Well,
he
that
was-
wasn't then. It was later. And he was talking to Carl Scherzen, who lives in this house, and who lived then.
Uh-huh.
And they were talking, and Carl noticed that his mouth kind of drooped on the side, and he was having a stroke. And he thought, "Does he feel okay?" And he noticed he was kind of snoring. So didn't he take him to the doctor, or what happened? It seemed to me
I don't.
that he was having a stroke at that time. He was paralyzed at one side. And
But
so,
he still lived in his house here after that stroke
yeah,
because he put pulleys up there to try and
Burnham got him. I remember he
trying to
employed.
strengthen himself because the doctors told him that you can strengthen yourself by pulling on things, rubber, stuff like that. Well, but one hand's like this and it's like this because this hand has no manipulation or whatever side it was. Was it his left or right side?
I think it was his left, because I remember he always held his hand like this.
could
Remember
be.
that?
So what year then did he go into the home?
Well, he stayed with us when he was unable to take care of himself. And I figured the kid, you know, he wanted his supper at 6 o'clock and so forth, and we were busy farmers, so we were always later. And the kids, they wanted the radio on and this music and stuff, and that irritated him. That's when he went to the home.
And how many years then did he live at the home?
Remember, 7?
7 years?
He was there quite a while.
But who was and also
there.
at the home didn't he live with like Willie for a
74?
while inside?
1974.
Didn't he live with Willie?
Yes, he shared a room with
He
William,
died
his
in that.
Uh-huh.
brother.
And wasn't Henry also residing at the home? Another brother at about the same
Yes,
time?
he shared the room with Willie. Uncle
But then
Willie.
also Henry was living there as well.
No, not at that
Henry
time.
had died by that time. No, he hadn't died. Well,
No,
yeah, Henry-
not at that time.
Henry was in there before, wasn't he? Or was he
I thought
after?
he was able to be there after.
Later.
Later?
Because, yeah.
But Dad died in 1974.
And could you explain the circumstances around
What?
the time of his death?
It was just natural,
Oh.
wasn't it?
They called me the nurses. They had him sitting up in a chair. Of course, they knew he was going to leave this world. And so I went in, and it was so pitiful, you know.
Because he, well, I remember hearing that he had just gushed up, vomited a lot of blood. And it must have been an ulcer, don't you think, that he had? What do you think?
Well, I don't know. What,
Something, maybe
Ulcer,
a cancer
I think.
or ulcer, what they said. And that he was bleeding internally. I think.
And
But
so
they
the,
didn't do anything. They knew
so
it
the
was
cause
lupus,
of the death was
you know.
The old age and his stroke. Hard
And-
time gave out.
at the time of his death he was what age?
86, 74, 86.
Yeah, I think so.
86.
Okay, so thank you very much. The final shot that we're at is at the Shell Creek Lutheran Cemetery, which is located 1 mile north and half a mile due east of Newman Grove up on a hill. A lot of the Cleveland clan over the years are now buried here, and currently Bessie and Nels are also buried here as well, including Nels's parents and Bessie's mother and stepfather are also buried here. I would like to close this up by having the 3 children that we have here just relay some final thoughts they may have on the video for whoever's going to be viewing it in the future. Okay?
Well, the first stone for our mother, it was hard times. And so we were able to buy a tombstone for $50. And we, after Dad died, well then we decided we need a bigger one and nicer one. And so then after this was, before it was put down, Joe, I think, was she the one that helped dig it out of the ground and cracked it up in pieces, and we gave to each of the families.
I still have my last Christmas gift from my mother. It was a red sweater with short sleeves, and so I can't wear it anymore, but I keep it as a memento. I miss my mother a lot when she died.
She did.
Yeah, she was interested in doing things, you know, with us girls.
Well, I primarily remember at the Annan's wedding, we wheeled my father down.
Huh?
Oh, yes.
You did what?
We wheeled him down the street.
Oh,
the
sure.
Right.
26 years
He
ago
sat
today.
out on the lawn.
Yes,
Didn't take him up yet.
right. And then we took him uptown afterward, and we
Yeah,
were
hombre.
running. And then we took Judy to Lincoln to fly back to New York.
Right.
And I remember running in the airport, pushing Dad in the wheelchair and running down.
I know.
Poor Dad, doing a ride like that.
He was game.
But he liked it. He enjoyed things too.
Yes,
Like when he came to
right.
Cleveland with you and your family,
Yeah.
Clarence and the kids, we wanted to go to one Edgewater Park or some park there, and he wanted to go on the roller coaster. And,
Yeah,
oh, he
I
was
remember
getting
him.
was just like him. He wanted to go to all these rides. So that's
But I do remember my dad had one and only one flight, and that was out of Cleveland. And they said, "What, do you want a wheelchair for him?"
Oh, yeah.
And he needed one. But he's so excited about getting on that plane and that he walked right up there, and I was almost felt kind of embarrassed a little bit because it didn't look like he needed a wheelchair. And they'd put him on there, and then I went up there and talked to him, and then he flew to Indianapolis for him.
oh yeah.
Sure, that.
He had come to. You had dropped him off at our house that day. Didn't you bring him on your way to?
Yes, and then we came up and picked him up and took him to
We
Cleveland
had
for a
brought
while.
him there.
You brought him to our house. That was his last visit. And Bernum and Ray came up and took him back to Cleveland, and then you put him on the plane to go to Indianapolis to Fort Lawrence.
That was his one and only flight here.
So
They're
he was,
getting a beautiful
But
view.
like our mother, though, I mean, our parents had a very hard life.
Yeah.
my mother and Dad both
They
worked
were.
so hard, really.
But she was very efficient and capable of doing a lot of things with very little.
She could make something out of nothing.
She'd make great cereal, you know, make it, put it in the pan, and then afterwards, after it was baked, you grind it, and it was really good drink. And we had a lot of
Turn butter and put it down and fold it. Take a potato, make a design in the potato, and then press that in like a star. Press that, decorate the butter, selling it.
Well, thank you very much.
Grandma's now is over here.
Oh yeah.
Mom's got one more. And then the grandson.
Oh, Karen, this is a Karen. Karen, say what while you're here. This is our mother's tombstone. She was Ella Hannah Flock, and her third husband was Shaw, Bernard Shaw. She died 1937.
And Bernard is buried over there by his sister, and that was by mistake because it went through. Bernard Shaw was the third husband of my grandmother, my mother's mother, and he was buried here by his sister, Sophie Hartjoy, and it was because a sister-in-law, Simon Shaw's wife, had told Mrs. Swanson around here, that lives around here, to have him buried here next to her. So, and we knew we weren't supposed to step in because we figured that, you know, they wanted to take care of it. So that's why she was buried there. Irene, a granddaughter of Sophie, or a daughter of Sophie, told me this.
Three. All three died. No, she died before him.
That's
So his mother's parents.
Yes.
His mother's
Clarence
parents.
boys were dying at that time. They really have nice looking gravestones.
They are.
Isn't that something?
Now look how beautiful they don't They look as if they were brand new, don't they?
Still.
See, that's a
I know, but
harder stone.
So I'm going to write that down.
Some of these others are softer and they deteriorate.
I'm the only one that decorates these.
really?
So it's none of the family. Clarence's mother's parents, Van T. Johnson. He was born in 30. And he died in 17.
Can you guys taste it? Who else is here?
Bernum.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Grandstone.
Where?
Actual. This Grandma Vineyard.
Grandma's
And then
vineyard?
Bernum wrote on the tape what she was like, that she used to help unwed mothers and
Oh, really?
take in divorce.
All right, well, I'm the film person. You get the people together.
Okay, Bernum,
I'm
can
tired.
your mom talk about Grandma Vineyard over here?
This is pretty.
Yeah, because this doesn't say vineyard anywhere, so it doesn't connect.
Why did you call her? Why was she Grandma Vineyard?
Because that was her second husband, and we knew her more by Grandma Vineyard.
Mhm.
We never considered him our grandpa because he was
Did we-
19 years younger.
Grandma Vineyard. She was not alive when we were around.
No,
She was like.
no.
She,
1937.
When I was a senior, she died.
all right, wait a minute. Let me think.
But why wouldn't Vineyard be on the gravestone?
Yeah.
Because her last
Because
name
her third
was
husband
Shaw.
was Shaw.
Okay, you guys go over here.
Still around when she
Oh, I
died.
see.
so
Oh, okay.
there's
And
her.
also,
Okay, go. This stone is my mother's stone, and I was named after her, Ella, and I don't know.
we always called her Grandma Vineyard. Her second husband was Vineyard, George Vineyard. And Bernard Shaw was 19 years younger than she was, and we never called him Grandpa ever. We just called him Bernard.
And he
Yes,
wasn't
we did.
dad to the mom and Elsa.
No,
either.
he wasn't. No, he was stepfather. So really, the stepfather, George Vineyard, was the one that we would refer to as grandpa. But he too was dead before we were born. He died in 1918, I think. But we still retained the nickname. You know, we called her Grandma Vineyard. She was.
She always gave us money, and she always used hair and no makeup,
Yes.
perfumes and powders
Beautiful
and
skin.
cream.
She had the most soft, smooth skin. Everybody commented about her skin. Of course, she died. How old was she when she died? 29. She died 66. So she was 3 years younger than I am right now. So, you know.
And
3 years
she
ago, my
made
skin
the
was real smooth.
best
She was,
syrup for pancakes.
Oh,
Heavy,
she was the
sugar
best
syrup,
cook.
maple.
And baker and cook, yes.
Yes.
She was. But she would hug us so tight when we would come over so tightly that she would just squeeze it, almost hurt. You know, she was always so lovable.
she was a real party woman. And she tried to mix her brother up with a neighbor lady. So she invites her over to do some work for her. So then
You wouldn't know that, would you?
there I was staying there with them that summer. And so she says, you know, trying to push him on, you know, encourage him and all that. And he kind of frowns at her and says, you know, Bernum's going to say something. She's, he doesn't understand any of that. What's going on?
She was kind-hearted, too.
She was a party girl.
She took in pregnant girls and let them take care. You know, she let them do housework for her and give them a home. Wayward guys, boys, and stuff like that.
I needed work to do. Earn something for the summer.
She always had money. I don't know how she had money.
I don't
money.
know, but she always managed to have, yeah. She was good.
Oh.
Because I don't know anything.
This is our father's parents. His father's name was Henry L. Because he did have a middle name.
Lewis.
I told you.
Oh, excuse me. He was born in 1847 and he died in 1936. Married Christina Elizabeth Mellon. She was born in 1850 and died in 1985. 1 year. 10 months before.
And the lives of Nels and Bernum Kleveland. We hope that it was very informative for you and that generations will be able to pass down this information and possibly this video and use the information from this to gain a better understanding of where they come from and a little bit of their history and their family values and facts of their lives. So appreciate your time, and I want to thank everybody who helped on this video as well. Thank you.
And this is the group.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Here's the camera crew. Debbie So Conrad, LaRiene Nelson, Beth So Grandal.
The Royce Project, his idea.
It was our pleasure.
Did you have fun filming and producing
This
this?
was a lot of fun. Learned a lot about our family. That was a lot of fun. Very informative. Things we didn't know before.
Okay.
Roy did a great job.
Yay, Roy!
All right, right, yeah.
Joe, take a picture on your camera. Why don't we take a picture of those three? Come on, Joe, take a snapshot real quick.
Pause. How do I get it off pause? Just turn off the top of the thing, right?
It's off. Debbie, the green button.
Oh, good. Okay.
Then you push it to turn it off.
DeLoris Nelson's on Sunday evening, and Lawrence was now available with us the other day, and what we need to do is clear up some discrepancies from the other day on the taping. Now, the first thing is to deal with Grandpa's stroke and what actually was involved with it. All right?
Okay, what I had said his stroke was after we went to Exit 67.
Can you speak up a little bit, please?
Actually, his stroke was before we went to Exit 67. We think it was in the early 60s. No one's sure of the date. Also, I had said that we were put in the culvert and pushed down roll down the hill from District 62, and it was not us girls, it was June Hanson. And the third correction is, excuse me, Lawrence's cyst that was removed on the side of his face was done when he was 3 or 4 years old, before he started school, on the McKay farm.
Now, there was also, I think, to me, a question about who actually owned the car. I believe when we talked to Mom separately, she said she owned the car, and yet I think you were saying that you both owned the car. Now, who actually owned this automobile?
We brought it together.
No.
Yes,
I
we
was
did.
teaching, you weren't teaching yet when I had
Yes,
the car.
I was
You
teaching.
both were buying the car.
Yes.
Urban, I think, sold to you for $55, and you both paid $5 a month on the car.
Well, I know I paid 5, but
Yeah.
I was teaching and had the car, and you didn't have the car.
No, you drove it.
You
that's right.
you
I-
drove
I had it
Lorraine to
north.
stay at her place.
And you took the car and went up to your place, but we both paid on that car, because when Clarence sold it, you sent me half of the money.
And who bought it?
I don't remember, but I was in Portland, Oregon, and I remember Clarence, and he sent me a check for half the money.
Now, Lawrence, since you weren't available out of the cemetery the other day, do you have any specific memories of Grandpa and Grandpa that you want to share?
You mean my father and mother?
Yeah, right.
Well, I know that the last years after my mother died is start with the Dolores and Lorraine helped with housework and taught school and would live at home and helped out. And then I think the last year possibly, or the 6 months, whatever, they were both teaching in you'd gotten married, Dolores got married, and Lorraine was teaching her where she wasn't at that. Or did you teach in 57 that
Yes.
last? You taught in 57, so you were there. But we'd have to get up real early in the morning and do the chores and get ready for school and come home from school. Well, you right away had to go out and work chores and in the field, and it was pretty tough. And it was even tough on Dad, so he sold out and we moved into Newman Grove, and that was like a life of luxury there because didn't have all these chores and all that work and
Had electricity and water.
right, electricity and water and a bathroom.
Right.
Inside that. And
How did you take a bath, by the way, in those days?
well, you took one whether you needed it or not every Saturday night.
And you used one towel, right? I think Mom told us one time you always use just one towel.
We may have used one, I don't recall that, but on the farm we had a big wash tub, and we'd heat the water on the stove, wood burning stove, and after you took your bath, well then you'd have to dump the water out, and the next one will already have his or her water heating. And naturally, if it was winter time, it was pretty cold to be taking a bath because the house wasn't all that warm. And naturally, in the winter time, we slept upstairs in the old farmhouse, and it would be where it'd be frost on the covers when you woke up in the morning. You'd go to bed at night with your long johns and possibly your clothes on if it was real bitter cold. Sleep your head under the covers, covered up, and the windows would be all frosted, no heat upstairs. The heat downstairs, the fire would almost be out by the time Mom and Dad get up in the mornings to fire the stove, which we didn't use as much wood as we did coal. We used more coal. We did cut a few trees in the tree line around the house, and but we would buy the coal and made better heat and lasted longer.
Didn't you even work for Clarence and DeLoris then at one time too?
Yes, I did. While I was in high school, after we moved to Newman Grove in the town, well, then weekends I would go out and help with cleaning chicken houses or picking corn, or and the summer months then we would work. We'd keep the tractor running 24 hours a day. Clarence would possibly run the tractor till midnight, and then they'd wake me up and I'd go out and I'd run it till daylight and almost fall asleep. When that sun would start coming up, your eyes get real heavy, and I'd stop and come in and eat breakfast, which Doris always had a big breakfast. It was pancakes, cereal, eggs, bacon, sausage, fruit juice, milk, coffee, you name it, she had the big feed on the table. And then I would go back out and work again through the day, and Clarence would be running one tractor, I'd be running the other. And of course in the dark, I remember one time we was on this one field, I think it was about 160 acres there, and I'd made the complete round before I realized that it was hung up, the plow was hung up with corn stalks doing nothing but riding on top of the ground, which was a little discouraging because that's a long ways around when you start on a 160 acre field. Coyotes would be out there laying in the furrow, and I'd have a revolver with me on the tractor, but if I just made a move to get the revolver to shoot at the coyote, well, it was gone. And at one time we used LaRiene Nelson's old tractor, I think it was a Ferguson steel wheel.
Yeah, that's the one that Elaine and I bought together.
Yeah, that's what it was. And we would pull, I think, a 3-bottom plow with it?
Yeah, that one with the 8 and pulling the 214.
Right, and then naturally in the corn picking season, well, Clarence would get out there and maybe Dad and me picking with one wagon, him with another. There Clarence be heading for the house with his big load of corn, and me and Dad, we might not much more than have the bottom of ours covered.
He's pouring it on pretty thick now.
And he would unload that load in the crib, shoveling by hand, and then come back and get another load. That was dinner time by then. And me and Dad, we would barely have our load. Afternoon, he'd do the same thing, 2 big loads. And Fred Myers across the road, well, he big-time farmer with his old corn picker. Well, he wouldn't pick what Clarence did because he was broke down. His corn picker would be broke down all the time. And I thought to myself, well, Clarence was doing the right thing, not bothering with an old picker like they had. Then we'd come in the evening and sometimes probably have about 13 cows to milk and hogs to feed. And Dolores helped too with chores, feeding chickens, picking eggs. And we'd probably be lucky to get done with chores by 10 o'clock. And Clarence was an early riser, and I was a deadhead. They'd have to holler at me. About 6 o'clock in the morning, we was up and at it again. And I never could see how Clarence could stay with all that work like he was doing.
How much did he
Hard-working
pay
man.
you? How much did he pay you in those days?
I think at that time it was 75 cents an hour. But
Is that
was,
true?
Back then, that was good money. Because when Irvin grew up in high school, he worked for our neighbors Nelsons for $1 a day. That would be from daylight to dark, and he got his noon meal in $1 a day.
Tell us a little bit more about Irvin, if you could.
Well, when Irvin, of course, I was little, and when he was still at home, I was little, and he used to go down the old hog shed and roll his cigarettes and hide his tobacco sack and his papers, and we'd find him once in a while. But you better not move nothing he had, even in his drawer, because he would know it. And there'd be all kinds of cane raised. And then he would insist on taking the old Model